Hello and welcome to the Inspiring Women Wales podcast brought to you by NatWest Cymru and the University of South Wales. I'm Gemma, NatWest Cymru's Ecosystem Manager for Wales. When NatWest CEO Alison Rose carried out in-depth research into the barriers facing women in business, one of the key findings was that women said they just didn't see women like them starting and scaling in business. There just weren't enough relatable role models out there. With this podcast, we're aiming to put that right. In each episode, I'm joined by a fabulous female founder of a Welsh business to chat about their journey, the highs and the lows, the reality of life as an entrepreneur. We aim to inspire you and give you the confidence to move forward with your business dreams. With me for this episode is Mandy Powell, founder and CEO of the Goodwash company. Hi, Mandy.
Bore da, Gemma. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
Very well. Very well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this. Mandy, you set up the Goodwash company in Barry in South Wales in 2018 with the tagline, "Changing the world one wash at a time." Tell me a bit more about the brand and that fantastic tagline. What's the story behind that?
So the Goodwash company aims to do two things, to develop and design a Welsh luxury wash brand that was ethical and cruelty-free, but also using its business model and the profits, we wanted to help local communities. So if we started in Wales, we'd be changing the world just one wash at a time.
That's fantastic. So really a brand with a purpose. 3 years ago when you started this, did you find that the people understood straight away what that was all about?
No, we were actually put off setting up the company, to be honest. We spoke to a lot of different companies. We spoke to some marketing experts and some business experts, and they said a few things to kind of put us off starting. They said you could never set up a Welsh wash brand with the Welsh language that would sell outside Wales. They also said if you're going to set up something that has a charitable purpose or a social purpose, you can't have it as a luxury brand because it's a bit of an oxymoron. So we also have a wash for our dogs, a dog wash that's approved for human use as well, so you can shower with the dog. And we were told you're absolutely bonkers, that's never going to work. So, there's three quick examples there of how we were kind of said, it's never going to work, but I did it anyway. I wanted to give it a go.
That's amazing. And how life has changed in such a short space of time. I mean, during the pandemic, I think it's safe to say we've seen consumer behaviour shift such a lot. Would you say that now is a better time for brands that really live their purpose like yours, in the sense that we saw consumers caring a lot more about the provenance and where their brands were coming from, and also that the brands that they were supporting were doing good? Do you think that's much more of a thing now than it was even 3 years ago when you started?
Absolutely. I think the wave is definitely, it's breaking. Consumers are a lot more conscious of where their products are coming from. There's a lot more support for local businesses, particularly here in Barry. We launched our shop bang in the middle of the pandemic, which was mad, but we had so much support. And I think even as horrendous as the pandemic's been, it enabled people to kind of stop and reflect on everything that's kind of going on in the world. And, why are we ordering things from New Zealand or across the world? Why can't we just buy stuff local and support local brands? And I definitely think the world was going that way anyway, to conscious consumerism. But I certainly think the pandemic has pressed fast forward on that a little bit more. Yeah.
And going back to the third point that people said you were crazy to do, and that was having the dogs front and centre of the business. Tell me a bit about your fur founders and their part in it all.
Yeah, so one of the amazing things about owning your own business and developing your own brand is that you can make it what you want it to be. So, you haven't got all this red tape. You're not stuck in a corporate where your ideas just get pushed to the side. You can put your own thoughts out there and have your brand exactly how you want it. So I had two dogs at the time, Mandy Powell and Duffel Powell. One was a Westie, one was a Labradoodle. And whilst I was working up in London, I really missed them and I wanted to come back home to Wales and spend a lot of my time with them. So I made them part of the Goodwash company. We developed a dog range. And then everywhere I went, if I went to shows or exhibitions, even in the shop, I would take them with me, and then they became part of the brand. And I think people really buy into authenticity. And I think if you try and be something you're not, at some point the mask will always fall down and people will see through it. Whereas if you're actually developing your own business that you believe in, I think you will find your following and you will get so much support, because there's always people out there that believe in the same things that you do.
And I think that's a really key point, isn't it? Especially when we are talking to women who might be sitting there thinking they've got an idea, a burning passion, but they don't know how to take it forward, or they may be afraid to take the first steps. That authenticity piece is so important, isn't it? And we've already talked about how now actually, ironically, might be a better time than even in the recent past. What would your message be to those women about taking the plunge? I mean, you've already mentioned that you left a corporate career. How does that feel?
You always feel like you're not quite ready to do it. I don't know from my experience, it was like, well, I don't know whether I'm ready yet. I don't know whether I'm ready yet. And I just thought, if you don't actually take that step, you'll never know. So I would just say, look, go for it. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? As long as you kind of protect yourself financially and you make sure that you're okay. There's going to be low points. There's going to be points where you think you're crazy and what have I done? But you kind of got to get your head down and get through them. And the highs are much higher because it's your own business and you've developed that.
That's really interesting. And thinking about the move from a corporate career, I mean, when you're working for a big company, you've got an HR department, you've got an IT department, you've got all those safety nets. And then if you go it alone, those things aren't there, obviously. How did you manage in the early days and even now in terms of having to do it all and be everything in the company?
Yeah, that was one of the big learns for me. And I think you don't realise how lucky you are when you work for a pharmaceutical company. Everything you do, you've got a different department for. So if I need the cash flow, I'll go to the finance department. If I need some marketing, I'll go to the marketing department. Or if there's an issue with staffing, before I do anything, I'll just speak to HR. But, you're out there on your own and you don't have that. However, there are so many agencies out there who are willing to support you. So we're lucky enough to be on the NatWest program, accelerator program. There's Welsh business support, and there's always experts in their field out there that you will have access to that can help you. So even though you don't have those departments on hand, there is that support out there.
You've mentioned there being part of the NatWest Accelerator program, which exists to help businesses just like yours to scale and get to the next level. There are also other programs that you've referenced, including plenty of support from University of South Wales. And for those with just a business idea, University of South Wales has run their Developing Entrepreneurial Women program. And I know you were one of the inspirational speakers for that recently as well. Those networks and communities are really valuable, aren't they? What would you say are the key things you've had as a solo entrepreneur in being part of those communities and those almost families, I think, aren't they?
Yeah, I think if you set up a business on your own, it can be quite lonely because you're the person that drives the ship. You steer it. You manage people, you manage all the different kind of customers that you have. And everyone looks to you, but sometimes, who do you go to for that support? So having those female entrepreneurs, or not just female entrepreneurs, any business owners locally that you can kind of bounce off or ring up if you're having a hard time, it really helps having that network around you.
And you come from a really strong sporting background, Mandy. You're an ex-Welsh international hockey and touch rugby player. How would you reflect on what taking part in sport to that level can teach you about running a business?
I think playing sport from a young age onwards, particularly a competitive sport, helps you in all aspects of business. You get the discipline, you get the disciplined mind. So, you have to follow a training program, you're up early training, and you don't shy away from competition. You engage in it and you relish it, and it makes, that whoever you're competing against, you up your game to make sure that you're on a par with them. I think the key thing for me that I've taken with me through everything in life, not just business, is the feedback. So if you play sport and you drop a ball, or I don't know, you're not fast enough, or you're not very good at defending, the coach will tell you that. We take feedback as a gift. Oh, thank you for that. You've highlighted my weak point. I'll work on that. Whereas I think a lot of people who are not used to that can almost take offense, go into a ball and get really upset and go in themselves. Whereas actually feedback is a really good thing. If somebody points out something you can do better, that's a really good gift for you, so you can improve on it. So I think, that's a key thing I've taken from sport.
That's really interesting, Mandy. And you talk there about the importance of a coach. And one of the things we offer on the NatWest Accelerator program is access to one-to-one coaching. We've already talked about the pressures of being an entrepreneur, particularly when you're starting out and particularly when you might be in it alone. How important do you think it is to have a coach, whether a formal coach or whether somebody in your networks that's a sounding board for you, much the same way as you might have in a sporting arena, but so that you can sense check where you're going with a business, and have them on hand really to support you through your journey? Is that something that you would suggest everybody thinks about?
Yeah, 100%. I think I've already mentioned that it can be quite alone. Sometimes it can be a lonely place, and you've got big decisions. So if you're working for a NatWest Bank or you're working for Pfizer Pharmaceuticals, there's always like a chain of people that can sanity check your decisions. And you've also got a budget and things like that. So big decisions don't go down to one person, but when you've got your own business, it's all on you. So having that mentor, somebody who's been there, done it, can really steer you making those bigger decisions. And for example, the Goodwash company has gone through tremendous growth, and we've got ambitions to grow to £1 million company by next year. So when I'm making decisions to buy raw product, to go from spending £10,000 on an order to maybe 50, I start having palpitations, and I'm like, I'm really worried about that. But the business mentor that I have would be like, you have to do that, just do it. And it just gives you that little bit of confidence to take that step. Whereas I'd probably be a little bit, I don't know, sounds like a lot. And then we just go around in circles and we wouldn't grow.
And I suppose that comes back to, again, your sporting analogy in terms of the teamwork. One of the things that we always tell businesses that we engage with is that it's really important to recognize your strengths, but also know your weaknesses, and then either bring somebody in or outsource or whatever. Is that a lesson you've had to learn?
Absolutely 100%. So I always look upon a business, I'm good at what I'm good at, but I'm also, there's so many gaps in what I know. I'm not a finance person. I'm not really good at filing things, like on the laptop, dare I say it, somebody else needs to do that for me. But identifying what your strengths are, and then identifying what the business needs are, and then filling those gaps is absolutely essential. And I think if we look on it like a football team, and I always use this analogy, I might be a striker, but the football team needs a goalkeeper, it needs a midfielder, it needs a defender. And you can't be all those things. So identify what you need and then bring those people in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's such a valuable lesson for anybody starting out or just growing the business to recognise. And I think especially as women as well, there can maybe be a tendency to feel a little bit like we should be able to do it all, or to have that imposter syndrome that because we can't do it all, we can't do any of it. So I think it's really, really important to hear from somebody like yourself who's doing it and doing it really well, that this is an issue that everybody faces, and actually knowing the things you're not good at and acknowledging them is actually a bit of a strength as well.
It's a bit of a journey, because when somebody says, "Oh, you're not very," I'm trying to think of something that someone said to me. Well, your files are all over the place. Why have you got so many emails? Why don't you file them? At first, you take a bit. You're like, "Oh, it's a bit rude," and then you're like, "Oh no, actually, you're right," and you take it on board and you embrace it and you fix it. This is same pattern in life, really.
And you talked a little bit there about growth plans and the ambitions for the business to reach some heights in terms of turnover. Talk us through where you're at with the business now. You mentioned a shop. So what are your markets? What's the size of the team? Where are you at the moment?
Yeah, so we've currently got about 7 members of staff. We're on the same path that we always planned to be, which is great. You know, we wanted to have a really high-end luxury brand that would sell across the world, and we sell in New York, New Jersey, Abu Dhabi. We are taking that Welsh language across the world, which is what we were told we could never do at the start, so that's great. We're in like luxury Michelin star restaurants, so you know, Ynys Hir with Gareth Ward, the Grove Hotel Narberth, the Priory Caerleon, and that's part of what I wanted my business to be, was to go to those places. I like nice places, you know, and if I can go there through work, then that's even better. So the brand is exactly where we want it to be. And the only problem that we've got is keeping up with demand and making sure that we've got enough stock there to sell. So that's quite a good problem to have. We've just had a restructure in the company and kind of upscaled all our operations. So we're now able to deliver up to 10,000 products a week. So that was a big jump up for us. Even though it's a bit scary, like I said earlier, you've got to spend out loads of money on like raw stock and production. If you've never done that before, it is quite scary, which is why I kind of lean on my mentor a little bit and say, oh, you know, is this the right thing? But you've got to be brave and you've got to take that step and believe that you can hit that million. You know, I always say it's like being in day one of a big school. When we've taken that step up to production, our sales aren't quite there yet. We're on day one of big school, but you've got to believe that you're going to get there. And yeah.
And that belief, I think, is been reflected in the fact that you've actually won quite a few awards for the business, haven't you?
Yeah, they're lovely.
Which is amazing. Another thing that we often see is that women in business sometimes struggle to put themselves forward for awards, again, possibly through imposter syndrome. Why would you say it's a good thing to enter business awards? What do you get out of it?
Everyone we've entered, we've either won or had runners up. So that feels really cool. Like, we don't enter a lot, but those that we do, we've had some acknowledgement. And I think it's just that. It's when you're in the business, your head's down, you can't see how you're externally viewed. You don't know how other people are perceiving you. And you don't know if you're doing a good job or not, really, because you're too far in it. So to have that external validation through Great British Entrepreneur, you know, Best Welsh Business Awards, you know, all these things, Welsh Language Awards, it just gives you that extra like nudge to, you know, people are acknowledging you're doing well. And you know, it's not the be all and end all, but it's just really nice to have that acknowledgement and have those awards. And they're all on the door in the shop. All the awards that we've won are on there, the glass doors, and we've actually got the awards in the shop. So we are really proud of them. And it's something that reinforces to customers that we're a genuine brand and we're well respected.
That's fantastic. And in terms of that success as well, you've got some quite impressive stats around the social impact that you've had. And at the top, we talked about the purpose of the business. What are some of the standout achievements in terms of your social impact so far?
Yeah, so as I said, there's 2 key purposes of the brand, and one of them is to help improve lives in local community or aspiring to change the world one wash at a time. So the social impact is paramount to everything that we do. During lockdown, we wanted to do something that was to help, because if you're an authentic brand, you do what you say you're going to do. So, you know, we could see the NHS was struggling. We could see the key workers were just being worked, you know, to the bone, and we wanted to do something that could help. So we developed a diolch bar. So diolch means thank you in Welsh. So every time somebody bought a soap bar or a hand wash, we would then donate one to the NHS. So we ended up donating over 25,000 wash bars and soap bars to the NHS workers. We covered every NHS trust in Wales and the majority of the UK as well. And we were able to give back then to the key workers, which was great. And people who bought from us also felt like they were giving back. So that was one kind of element that is an example of how you can improve lives. You know, like if something comes in as an emergency, you can kind of change direction. So usually we'd give, profit to the local dog rescue, profit to the local homeless charity called Llanmai in Cardiff. Whereas if there's an emergency, we can focus our attention to wherever that emergency is and set up a campaign to help support. So we do really feel like we're helping to improve lives.
It certainly seems like it, absolutely. Well, Mandy, thank you so much for joining me on this episode. It's been really inspirational to hear your journey and to chat to you. Thank you so much. If you'd like to hear further episodes of Inspiring Women Wales, then please subscribe. My thanks to you for listening and to Mandy Powell of the Goodwash Company for taking part in this chat. To find out more about this podcast and how USW Exchange can connect your organisation to the skills, expertise and facilities at the University of South Wales, visit southwales.ac.uk/business.